In this video, I'll be retouching this photo without any plugins, and that means that if you have any photo you want to retouch in Photoshop but you don't have all those plugins like Retouch Academy and Ultimate Retoucher and the rest, you can actually do it if you learn what I will be teaching you in this video. This image has already been adjusted to a 4:5 ratio, so that is why it is like this. And also I chose this image because it is the perfect fit for this, so don't mind the eye looking like that. The first step is to duplicate the image twice so that you have the low frequencies and the high frequencies. The low frequencies is to separate the shadows, the midtones and the highlights, and the high frequency is to separate the textures. Then you can select both of them and group it, call it frequency separation. In it we have the low frequency and we have the high frequency, and first of all we'll turn off the high frequency and work on the low frequency. So you open the Gaussian blur and push the slider to the point that you start noticing that the texture of the skin has disappeared. Remember, our focus is just the highlights, midtones and shadows. Over to the high frequency layer, make sure that it is turned on. Go to image, apply image and put in this setting for 8-bit images. For a 16-bit image, these are the settings. And back to the settings for my 8-bit images. So when you're done with that, make sure that you click OK. Well, why wouldn't you? With the high frequency still selected, go to the blending mode and change it to linear light. That will make it look as if nothing was done. So when you turn off the frequency separation group and turn it on, nothing changes. Duplicate each of the layers. First of all, with the low frequency, duplicate them and also duplicate that of the high frequency, but turn off the or reduce the opacity of high frequency, whichever one, just so that it will not interfere with the looks of the image. But this duplicate is so that you can save a progress. In case you make any mistake, you can always go back to the former settings. Turn off all the high frequencies and go to the mixer brush tool. The mixer brush is within the brush menu, or you can find it in the edit toolbar. When you selected the mixer brush, make sure that you maintain these settings on your screen. When you've done that, then you can start painting. Paint only the highlighted areas separate, paint the midtones separate and paint the shadows separate. Then you can come to their edges and blend them in gradually. There you go guys, here we have the image. I've turned on the high frequency that I will be working with. So as you can see, I'm working with those two duplicates that are together. The ones at the edges, the ones that are separated are just backups. Then we go to the high frequencies with the clone stamp tool selected and make sure that it is current layer that is selected. Take out the blemishes gradually, one after the other. It's also important to note that you can actually use this to clear even areas and blemishes that are not part of the skin. But even when you are doing it, be careful not to take out what is naturally occurring on the skin, like this dot here on the nose and that one on the hand. Done with the frequency separation, you can go ahead to close the group and start creating your dodge and burn layers. For the dodge and burn layers, you start by creating a curves adjustment layer, duplicate it and you will name one dodge, while you name the other one Bone. Dodge works on the highlight, increasing it, and Bone works on the shadows, making it darker. So on the Bone, we take it down a little, and on the curves for the Dodge, you take it higher. Add layer mask by pressing Ctrl-I on your keyboard so that it does not show, and when you brush on areas you want it to show, it then shows. Group both layers and name it Dodge and Bone. With the group open, select Dodge, turn up the frequency separation layer so that you can see the highlighted areas properly, and then you go over with your brush tool, change your brush tool, and make sure that the flow and the opacity is at 100. Select the background, go to edit, and go to color range. Pick only the highlights, pick a place on the skin where you can get much of the highlighted areas of the skin, and then go over to the curves adjustment layer for Dodge and paint over the skin. Hold down the Alt key and click on the layer mask. It will show you just the layer mask. Take out the excess parts that you don't want the Dodge or the Bone to be. I will repeat this process for both the Dodge and the Bone, and make sure that your foreground color is black so that it will hide the things you want to hide. Always go back to confirm the areas that are in the skin and the areas that are not in the skin so that you don't make any mistakes. Remember that when you are painting to reveal a layer mask, the foreground color should be white, and when you are painting on the layer mask to hide it, the foreground color should be black. If you don't have black and white on your foreground and background colors, press D on your keyboard to get that, and to toggle between black and white, press X. Apply Gaussian blur to the mix. Applying Gaussian blur to the highlights in a way that it blends in gradually to the dark areas. So get it to a point where you can find, and if you're okay with it, click on OK. Repeat the same process for the Dodge, for the Bone, and sometimes it's usually the same number, but when it is not, you can still adjust it and click on OK. Over now to the color grading process. Create a layer that has all the layers in one by pressing Ctrl-Shift-Alt-S. Right click and change it to Smart Object, then Ctrl-Shift-A to get into the camera raw filter. I love my life easy, so I just click on Auto to make an auto adjustment on the image. Then I can simply start adjusting the sliders to my test. Remember, every setting is different from every image, but you can as well duplicate or copy this setting if you'd wish to. And there we have the camera roll. Next step, create an empty layer, shift backspace to fill it in with 50% gray. Make sure that the settings are correct and click on OK. Change it to overlay and convert it to smart objects. Then you rush into camera raw again. Scroll down to Effects, Grain, 70 for grain. Adjust the size and the roughness to test. You can always come back to change these settings if it is not your type. Go over to Filter, Stylize and Emboss. Let the angle be perpendicular or corresponding to the angle of light. Height to and adjust. Then set the Gaussian blur, just very minimal, 0.1 is fine. Sometimes you don't even need the Gaussian blur. And then add a negative layer mask to it. Then paint on the areas that you want to show with a low flow. And gradually paint on the areas you want the texture to show. You can go ahead to make changes like reducing the opacity or going back to the camera raw filter or any other smart filters to make more adjustments. And when you're done, this is how your image will look like. I have renamed them just for order, it doesn't change anything. So this is where we started. This is the initial image, and this was when the frequency separation was done and the dodge and burn. Then we went ahead to add camera raw color grading or the camera raw filter, and of course the skin texture. And that is how you can retouch your photos in Photoshop to make them very beautiful, professional and mature without the use of any plugins. If you like this video, go ahead to click the like button, and if you've not subscribed, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.